At the edge of the map, where the land unravels into wind and water, lies Patagonia, the bottom of the world. Here, the continent itself seems to lose its balance, tapering into islands and storms. Stretching across more than 400,000 square miles, Patagonia spans both Argentina and Chile. Yet for all its size, it remains one of the most sparsely populated regions on Earth. To the west, Chile's Patagonia is a labyrinth of fjords and glaciers. To the east, Argentina's side unfolds in open plains, salt lakes, and cliffs where the land feels infinite. Even now, in the 21st century, Patagonia still feels like a frontier. Nature rules here, absolutely and unapologetically. And as the continent narrows toward its southernmost point, the land breaks apart. Mountains sink into the sea. Here lies Tierra del Fuego, the land of fire. A name that feels almost ironic. Because down here, there's not much fire. Only ice, water, and an endless wind that never seems to rest. The name came from the first Europeans who sailed by these shores. Ferdinand Magellan's crew in 1520. As their ships pushed through the cold mist of the strait that now bears his name, they saw countless flickering lights on the horizon. Bonfires lit by local peoples. This archipelago is split between Chile and Argentina, divided by the invisible line of history and politics. On one side, the wild fjords and glaciers of Chile. On the other, Argentina's southernmost province. Peat bogs and windswept grasslands stretch toward jagged mountains, while forests of twisted beech trees bend under the constant wind. Among them sits Ushuaia, the last city before the end of the world. It began as an outpost in the late 1800s, built by Anglican missionaries among the Yagan people. Later, Ushuaia became a penal colony, Argentina's answer to Siberia. The government believed that if they sent prisoners this far south, they'd never try to escape. They were right. The land itself was the prison. The cold, the forests, the endless distance, all of it formed invisible walls. The convicts cut timber, built the docks and railways. There's irony in that. The prisoners who once tried to escape this place ended up making it livable. Ushuaia isn't just far south, it's far from anywhere. Buenos Aires is almost 2,000 miles away, and Antarctica feels within reach. But like everything in Patagonia, Ushuaia evolved. The old prison became a museum. The docks filled with fishing boats and ferries. What once was exile turned into attraction. The end of the world became a destination. If Ushuaia is the heart of this world's end, then the Beagle Channel is its bloodstream. A long, cold passage between Argentina and Chile that stretches along the southern edge of Tierra del Fuego. The channel takes its name from HMS Beagle, the ship that carried a young Charles Darwin through these waters in the 1830s. It runs about 150 miles from east to west, connecting the Atlantic and the Pacific through a maze of islands and coves. Small boats navigate around rocky outcrops crowded with sea lions, their sleek bodies glistening in the weak sun. They bark and fight for space, unbothered by the passing vessels. To the west, the channel disappears into a labyrinth of fjords. Out there, glaciers spill their rugged tongues right into ice-cold waters. Places like this remind us how small we are and how vast the world can be when you finally run out of road. In the middle of the channel, a lonely lighthouse stands on a rocky outcrop, roughly 5 nautical miles east of Ushuaia. Les Éclaireurs, the Scouts in French, a title given to the chain of islets by early explorers of the region. Completed in 1920, the structure replaced an earlier beacon used by Argentine naval expeditions. The tower rises 33 feet high, painted in red and white horizontal bands, and built from brick and concrete. Its light flashes every 10 seconds and is visible for nearly 7 nautical miles on clear nights. Unlike many of the world's maritime beacons, it has always been automated and uninhabited, maintained remotely by Argentina's Navy. Les Éclaireurs is often mistaken for the mythical lighthouse at the end of the world, made famous by Jules Verne's 1905 novel. In reality, that title belongs to San Juan de Salvamento Lighthouse on a remote island farther east. At the far end of the Beagle Channel, Martillo Island hosts one of the southernmost penguin colonies on Earth. Isla Martillo, as it's called in Spanish, is part of the Estancia Harberton. The oldest ranch in Tierra del Fuego, founded in 1886. For decades, it was just another cold, uninhabited patch of land, occasionally visited by fishermen. Until the penguins came. Every October, when the austral spring begins to melt the frost and the days grow longer, thousands of Magellanic penguins waddle ashore to nest. The colony numbers around 3,000 breeding pairs, and though most will migrate north by late March, some remain year-round. Over time, other species join them. Gentoo penguins, recognised by their orange bills and white headbands, established a smaller colony here. And in recent years, even a handful of king penguins have begun to appear, straying from their usual range farther south. A living sign of how Patagonia's ecosystem keeps shifting in response to the changing climate and warmer currents. Leaving the Beagle Channel, the sea opens and changes character. Calm waters give way to the Drake Passage, one of the world's roughest stretches of ocean. Famous for strong winds and ever-changing weather. Among the swells, a dark silhouette of Cape Horn rises from the water. The surrounding ocean is a critical point for shipping, but also notoriously dangerous. Earning the Cape a reputation as a graveyard of ships. The first recorded rounding was by Ferdinand Magellan in 1520, completing the first circumnavigation of the globe. Since then, Cape Horn became an essential passage for European trade ships travelling between the Atlantic and Pacific. Sailors feared the Cape for sudden storms and unpredictable currents. Even today, commercial vessels approach it cautiously. Back on the mainland, north of Ushuaia, a narrow trail leads to a lake hidden among snow-capped mountains. Laguna Esmeralda, true to its name, glows in impossible shades of turquoise. The colour is unbelievable. Not just green, not just blue, but a shade so vivid it almost doesn't belong in nature. On sunny days, the surface gleams like glass. When clouds come, grey hues appear, as if hiding some secret beneath the waters. At the far end, the Ojo del Albino Glacier descends between two cliffs, feeding the lake with meltwater year-round. And that's where the colour comes from. Glacial silt suspended in the water, scattering light into that electric hue. It looks like a painter's impossible palette left untouched by human hands. The islands of Tierra del Fuego are separated from the mainland by the Strait of Magellan, a narrow, twisting passage connecting the Atlantic Ocean with the Pacific. Before the Panama Canal was built, this was the southern gateway to the world, the main route for ships rounding the continent. The waters here are unpredictable. Shifting currents, strong winds and sudden fog that can erase the horizon in minutes. Yet for centuries, sailors braved it because there was no other way. Ferdinand Magellan spent 38 days threading through its channels, guided only by luck and endurance. Modern ships still use the strait: cargo vessels, research boats, cruise liners heading toward Antarctica. And even now, when satellites can trace every curve, crossing it feels like an adventure. About 20 miles northeast of Punta Arenas, in the middle of the strait, lies another penguin sanctuary, Isla Magdalena. If Martillo Island in the Beagle Channel was an intimate family gathering, Magdalena is a metropolis. Here, tens of thousands of seabirds turn the landscape itself into something alive. In autumn, they begin to return from months spent at sea, and by December, the island hosts more than 60,000 breeding pairs. Compared to Martillo, where penguins share the beaches with Gentoo and the occasional king penguin, Isla Magdalena is almost exclusively Magellanic territory. From the moment your boat approaches the island, you see them everywhere. Scattered across the slopes, crossing the path, diving into the sea. There are no enclosures, no barriers, just a marked trail, cutting through one of the densest penguin colonies on Earth. The landscape around the island is sparse, almost barren, but for the busy families it's perfect. Low dunes, hardy grasses provide shelter from the wind and predators. From the Isla Magdalena, the Strait of Magellan threads south through a maze of fjords and peninsulas that make up the southern tip of Chile. On the shores of one of them, the Ultima Esperanza Sound, lies Puerto Natales. A small port town surrounded by mountains. The name Last Hope was given to the fjord by a Spanish explorer who had nearly run out of both supplies and luck while searching for a passage north. He didn't find it, but the name stuck, fitting for a place that feels like both an ending and a beginning. Puerto Natales was officially founded in 1911. But its history reaches back to the late 19th century, when settlers began arriving to raise sheep. The nearby plains proved perfect for grazing, and the region quickly became part of the booming Patagonian wool industry. British, Croatian and Chilean settlers established estancias, vast sheep ranches that still define much of the surrounding countryside. The waterfront is the heart of the town. From the pier, you can see snow-dusted peaks rising beyond the sound. This is Torres del Paine National Park. One of South America's most spectacular wilderness areas. Leaving Puerto Natales, paved roads fade into gravel and civilization slowly disappears. What opens ahead is a vast landscape of granite towers and glaciers that spill from the southern Patagonian ice field. The third largest ice mass on Earth. The name Paine comes from the Tehuelche word for blue. And everything here seems to carry that colour. The lakes, the mountains, even the shadows. At its centre rise the park's most famous features, the Torres del Paine and the Cuernos del Paine. Massive rock formations sculpted by ice over 12 million years. The Torres, 3 vertical spires reaching more than 9,000 feet, are often shrouded in fast-moving clouds. Nearby, the Cuernos, with their dark sedimentary caps and pale granite bases, show the geological layering that makes this range unique. Despite its remoteness, the park attracts hundreds of thousands of visitors each year. The weather shifts constantly, a mix of rain, snow and sunlight that can all happen within an hour. But that volatility is part of its character. Torres del Paine doesn't promise comfort, it promises perspective. Showing how landscapes can be both harsh and delicate. At the foot of the mountains, hidden among wind-carved hills, lies one of Patagonia's strangest and most evocative places, the Cave of the Milledon. a space that's been occupied for more than 10,000 years, first by giant animals, later by the humans who hunted them. The cave was made famous in 1895 when a local settler discovered a piece of strange furry hide preserved by the cold air. It turned out to belong to a Milodon, an extinct giant ground sloth that once roamed southern Patagonia. It disappeared around 10,000 years ago, but the discovery sparked worldwide fascination. For a moment, scientists even wondered whether the creature might still survive in the remote valleys of Chilean Patagonia. Since then, excavations have revealed evidence of early human presence. The cave became a time capsule of a world that existed before glaciers fully receded. When the line between man and beast was still being drawn. Crossing back into Argentina, the road winds east toward El Calafate. A frontier outpost between the endless steppe and the ice of the Andes. Before tourism, it was just a small settlement supplying nearby sheep ranches. But the story changed in the mid-20th century, when Los Glaciares National Park was established, and the town became the main access point. The name Calafate comes from a hardy Patagonian shrub that bears dark blue berries. Local legend says that anyone who eats the fruit is destined to return to Patagonia. Maybe that's why travellers keep coming back, drawn not only by the glaciers, but by the strange beauty of this remote land. Just outside town lies Laguna Nimes, a protected reserve, and home to more than 70 species of birds, including a large colony of Chilean flamingos. On calm days, their pink reflections ripple across the turquoise water. A surreal contrast against the snow-covered Andes in the background. Yet, for most visitors, El Calafate serves as a gateway to one of Patagonia's most iconic spectacles, the Perito Moreno. Unlike most glaciers, which retreat quietly into history, Perito Moreno moves forward, calves and cracks. The glacier stretches nearly 100 square miles, but it's the front wall, almost 200 feet above the waterline, that grabs attention. From the observation decks, the ice looks impossibly blue. A colour so pure it seems unreal. And the sound is overwhelming, ice shattering, tumbling into Lago Argentino with a splash that echoes across the mountains. Every few minutes, the glacier groans and a piece collapses into the water. There's a rhythm to it, a breathing force of nature. Deep fissures carve the ice into jagged towers. Small caves open to reveal walls of perfect azure. In some sections, the ice looks almost transparent, like frozen glass, while in others it's blackened with sediment collected over millennia. A few hours north, we meet one of Patagonia's most recognizable silhouettes. Mount Fitzroy. And at its foot hides El Chaltén, Argentina's trekking capital. Born in the 1980s as a strategic foothold in a border dispute with Chile, it's grown into a mecca for hikers and climbers chasing the perfect skyline. Above it all rises Fitzroy, or as the Tehuelche people once called it, the Smoking Mountain. Not because it's volcanic, but because the peak is so often wrapped in its own private cloud. At over 11,000 feet, it's not the tallest in the Andes, but few mountains command the same reverence. The approach is part of the experience. Trails begin almost at El Chaltén's doorstep, winding through Lenga forests. Weather changes in minutes. It's not a place that bends to human schedules. Fitzroy decides when it will show itself, and most days it doesn't. But when the clouds finally part and that serrated skyline glows against a cobalt sky, every blister, every gust of wind feels worth it. Further away from the Andes, landscapes are different. Endless plains, wind-bent shrubs, and skies that seem to go on forever. Somewhere into this desolate expanse lies one of the oldest human expressions on Earth, Cueva de las Manos. Hundreds of hands, red, white, black and ochre, spread across the walls, layered one over another. They're small, delicate, most of them belonging to adolescents or women, and they've been here for more than 9,000 years. Using mineral pigments and hollow bones, they blew paint around their hands, leaving behind stencils that somehow feel more human than any sculpture or monument. Each hand is both anonymous and deeply personal. A signature, a declaration, we were here. But we head back to the mountains, gliding over one of Patagonia's most striking natural wonders, Lago General Carrera. Formed by glaciers thousands of years ago, it's the largest in Chile and the second largest in South America. The waters are so vividly blue, they seem lit from within. And beneath their surface lies a secret, the marble caves. They were sculpted by waves over 6,000 years into smooth corridors, columns and domes of swirling blue and white stone. The walls are streaked and polished. Glowing softly as the sunlight filters through the turquoise lake outside. On calm days, the reflections of the caves are mirrored perfectly in the lake's surface, creating the illusion of floating through an endless blue sphere. Geologically, it's pure chemistry. Calcium carbonate dissolved and reshaped by water erosion. But standing there, it's impossible to think in those terms. It feels more like art. Every turn reveals a new pattern. North of the lake, the Carretera Austral winds through some of the wildest terrain in South America. It's not a highway in the usual sense, more a long, narrow thread of gravel carved through mountains, fjords, and temperate rainforest. Somewhere along this road lies Kulat National Park. Home to one of Chile's most surreal natural sights, the Hanging Glacier. An immense wall of ice suspended between two dark cliffs, seemingly floating above the valley. It looks impossible, a glacier hanging in midair. Its base ending not in a lake, but an empty space. From that gap, meltwater cascades down hundreds of feet in a roaring waterfall, disappearing into the forest below. Scientists say the glacier once reached the valley floor. Over centuries it retreated, leaving behind that dramatic drop. On the shores of Argentina's Atlantic coast, Puerto Madryn was founded in 1865 when Welsh settlers landed here after a perilous voyage across the ocean. Today, the town's famous for the giants that visit its bay every year. From June to December, the calm waters of the Golfo Nuevo fill with southern right whales. Massive creatures that migrate thousands of kilometres from Antarctic feeding grounds to mate and give birth near the coast. Sometimes they appear right off the pier, mothers and calves gliding slowly through the turquoise water. Boat tours on the Valdez Peninsula itself bring you close enough to hear their breathing. A deep, thunderous exhale that echoes across the still sea. The southern right whale was once hunted almost to extinction. Slow-moving, rich in oil, and floating when dead. By the 20th century, it had nearly disappeared. But here, along the protected bays of Valdez, the population has rebounded. The peninsula became a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1999. Recognised as one of the most important breeding grounds for the species on Earth. Trevelin is another town born from the dreams of Welsh immigrants who crossed the Atlantic in the 19th century. Its name is a nod to the grain mill around which the settlement slowly grew. While nearby Puerto Madryn marked their first arrival, it was here that many of them finally found the landscape reminiscent of the distant homeland. The town's streets are quiet, lined with tidy houses, flower gardens, and tea rooms serving scones and homemade jam. The local school still teaches some Welsh history, and family names like Jones, Hughes, and Roberts remain common. Beyond the town, the road climbs into the mountains and into one of Argentina's most beautiful protected areas, Los Alerces National Park. It was created to protect the Alerce, or Patagonian cypress. One of the oldest living tree species on Earth. Some of these giants are more than 3,000 years old. Their trunks massive and bark thick like armour. Nearby, another town began as a trading post for settlers and sheep ranchers, but its real story arrived on rails. Escalde grew around one of Patagonia's most ambitious projects, the Old Patagonian Express. A part of a grand plan to connect Argentina's remote southern territories by rail. But construction stopped short, and Escalde became the line's final station. Against all odds, the little train endured. Becoming one of the last narrow-gauge steam railways still in operation anywhere in the world. Its nickname, La Trochita, comes from the tiny 30-inch wide track, one of the narrowest ever built. The locomotives, small steam engines imported from the United States and Germany, still burn wood and diesel. The route from Escalde to Nahuelpan, only 11 miles away, may be short, but feels like a journey through time. Off the coast of southern Chile, Chiloé Island feels apart from the rest of the country, as if the ocean around it preserved not only landscape, but the way of life. The island's story began long before the Spanish arrived. The Huilliche people first lived here in a perfect harmony with the sea. Later came the Spanish and Jesuit missionaries, building wooden churches in every village. More than 60 in total. each one blending European design with local carpentry and native wood. But Chiloé's most famous image are the palafitos, the stilt houses built by fishermen who needed to live close to their boats. At high tide, they seem to float. When water retreats, wooden stilts sink into the exposed mud. Many were once humble homes and workshops. Over time, some fell into disrepair. Others were restored into guest houses and art studios. Their facades, painted in bright colours that fade beautifully in the rain, mirror the island's spirit. Practical and quietly beautiful. Puerto Varas, one of the most picturesque towns in Patagonia's northern edge, sits quietly on the shores of Lake Yanquihue. It was founded in the mid-19th century by German settlers, invited by the Chilean government to colonize the Lake District. Their influence is everywhere, in the steep-roofed wooden houses, the tidy gardens, the pastries in the cafes. On the other side of the lake, the reflection of Osorno volcano stretches across the water, a flawless cone of snow and lava. Rising to 8,700 feet, it dominates everything. The slopes are so smooth they look drawn by hand, masking the violent history beneath. Over the past 200,000 years, Osorno has erupted more than 10 times, shaping the valleys and changing the colour of the soil. At the foot of the mountain, Petrohue River carries turquoise glacial water through hardened lava flows. Over time, the current carved the rock into smooth, otherworldly shapes, now known as the Petrohue Waterfalls. Crossing the Andes from Chile into Argentina, we arrive at San Carlos de Bariloche, the meeting point of wilderness and civilization in the heart of Argentina's Lake District. Surrounded by peaks that rise directly from the water. Founded in the early 1900s by German settlers, it grew into the Argentine Switzerland. Alpine-style chalets and chocolate shops blending with Patagonian scale. The town's growth began with the creation of Nahuel Huapi National Park in 1934, Argentina's first. Circuito Chico, a 37-mile loop, climbs into the hills west of town. Winding through forests, passing hidden bays and small chapels. Viewpoints offer 360-degree panoramas of blue lakes and snow-capped peaks stretching all the way to Chile. Along the way, the road passes Hotel Yao Yao, the grand Patagonian lodge built in the 1940s. Its timber and stone design became the model for mountain architecture across the Andes. Bariloche's stone and timber streets lean towards the vast blue mirror of Lake Nahuel Huapi. The immense glacial heart of northern Patagonia. Born from ice ages long gone, it sprawls over 60 miles in length, with fjord-like arms cutting deep into the mountains. The lake's waters are startlingly clear, sometimes turquoise, sometimes navy, depending on the light. On calm days, the surface turns to glass, mirroring the snowy peaks and the drifting clouds above. The name comes from the Mapuche language, Island of the Jaguar. That hint of mystery feels right. Beneath the surface lies not only great depth, almost 1,500 feet, but also stories and legends. The most famous is that of Nahuelito, a mythical creature, Patagonia's own cousin of the Loch Ness Monster. Most locals tell the story with a grin, but part of them still leaves room for wonder. At the northern edge of the lake, a quiet town is hidden in the trees. While Bariloche grew into a city, Villa La Angostura stayed closer to the land. It's the kind of place where people still leave their doors unlocked. The town takes its name from the narrow peninsula, La Angostura, that separates the arms of Nahuel Huapi. The landscapes are extraordinary, a blend of wild Andean forest and postcard calm. The crown jewel is the Arayanes Forest, a grove of cinnamon-coloured trees with smooth, twisting trunks that glow almost orange in sunlight. The Arayan grows elsewhere in Patagonia, but never in such pure concentration. The forest here is the only one of its kind in the world. And some trees are said to be more than 300 years old. Around town, Lago Correntoso empties into Nahuel Huapi through one of the world's shortest rivers, just a few dozen feet long. From here begins one of the most celebrated roads in Argentina. The Road of the Seven Lakes. though in truth, there are more than 7 if you count the hidden ones behind the hills. It's one of South America's most scenic drives. Along the route, mountains soften into rounded ridges, and rivers of turquoise water cut through valleys. The landscape shifts constantly. One moment, you're driving through shadowed forest. The next, the trees part and lakes gleam under the sun. Small roadside pullouts invite pauses, not the kind of stops you plan, but the ones that happen because you can't not stop. The route traces an old path once used by Mapuche communities moving between valleys. Today, it's a pilgrimage of sorts for travellers. Road trippers and backpackers drawn by the idea of a place where the world still feels whole. The road ends, or maybe begins, in San Martín de los Andes, another charming alpine town on the shore of Lago Lacar. Founded in 1898, the settlement began as a military outpost. Its purpose was to secure the country's southern frontier, still disputed with Chile. Gradually, this outpost turned into a mountain town, a place for hikers and travellers. The architecture is distinctly Patagonian. Steep roofs, wooden facades, and stone foundations built to withstand heavy snow. The lake itself, Lago Lacar, stretches for 15 miles with steep cliffs and thick forests on both sides. Its waters are so clear that from a boat you can see straight down to the submerged branches of fallen trees. The lake drains westward through the Huayllum River, crossing into Chile. One of the few Argentine lakes that naturally flows toward the Pacific. That unique geography made it a key route for trade and communication long before any roads were built. Not far from San Martín de los Andes, a snow-capped peak begins to rise above the forest line, perfect and symmetrical. Seen from any direction, across the lake, or even miles away in Chile, the cone looks like the blueprint from which all volcanoes were drawn. This is Lanín Volcano, the sacred mountain of northern Patagonia. A frozen pyramid soaring over 12,000 feet, the highest summit in Argentina's Neuquén province. It's part of the Andean volcanic belt, a string of peaks born from the slow collision of the Nazca and South American tectonic plates. The volcano gives its name to the park that surrounds it. a vast wilderness stretching across more than 1 million acres. It was established in 1937, one of Argentina's earliest national parks. Protecting not just nature, but identity. Because to the locals, Lanín is a living spirit, home to the Pian, the guardian of the natural world. But the cone of Lanín is not alone. Further west, the volcanic belt continues, punctuated by 2 more peaks. One of them, Villarrica Volcano, is one of South America's most active and charismatic mountains. Standing 11,500 feet tall, it's capped with glaciers that melt into a network of lakes and rivers, feeding the forest below. Unlike Lanín, which has slept for thousands of years, Villarrica is active almost constantly, producing lava fountains and ash plumes visible from miles away. Its lava lake, sometimes exposed at the summit, glows like a molten heartbeat. The volcano's flanks are cloaked in Andean Patagonian forests, and glacial meltwater form a web of turquoise lakes. In winter, the upper cone disappears beneath snow, while summer reveals the dark volcanic rock. Deep within Argentina's Neuquén province, forests fade into a volcanic plateau. The air turns dry and rivers carve through ochre rock. Here, among the lonely mesas of the Andes foothills, hides one of Patagonia's most striking waterfalls, Salto del Agrio. The name itself, Agrio, means sour, a nod to the river's acidity. Fed by mineral-rich runoff from the Copahue volcano, its waters carry sulfur, iron and copper. These elements give the canyon its palette. Red, orange and yellow walls stained as if painted by fire. The basalt formations surrounding it are remnants of ancient lava flows solidified into geometric patterns. Scientists have studied the Agrio River's chemistry for decades. Its pH levels can drop below 2.5, comparable to lemon juice. Yet microbial life thrives within it, extremophiles that feed on iron and sulfur. These organisms are similar to those found in volcanic craters or deep-sea vents, offering clues to how life might exist on other planets. The Copahue volcano, 10 miles upstream, is one of the few active volcanoes in Argentina. Its last eruption occurred in 2016. At its foot, Cavallari sits on the shores of a lake of the same name, its waters equally rich in minerals. Known for its thermal baths, it's one of the few places in Argentina where you can soak in volcanic hot springs. The milky blue mirror of Lake Cavallari is surrounded by black volcanic slopes and forests of strange, prehistoric trees. Araucaria araucana, or monkey puzzle tree. Ancient evergreens that have existed since the age of dinosaurs. They can grow over 150 feet tall and live for more than 1,000 years. Their sharp, scale-like leaves spiral around thick branches. Araucaria forests once covered vast areas of Patagonia, but today they survive mainly in protected regions. Fossilized remains found nearby show that their ancestors thrived here over 200 million years ago. Long before the Andes even existed. "30 miles southeast of Santiago, the Maipo River cuts a deep gorge. This is Cajon del Maipo, a corridor of rock where the Andes reveal their underlying power. Meltwater from glaciers fills the Embalse El Yeso. An aquamarine reservoir perched at 8,200 feet above sea level. Built in the 1960s, the dam holds over 66 billion gallons of water. Providing up to 80% of the capital's drinking supply during dry months. The canyon lies in one of 4 main volcanic belts along the continent. Magma rises toward the surface, forming towering stratovolcanoes. Water from rainfall and snowmelt infiltrates deep into fractures in bedrock, descending several miles. Heated and enriched with minerals, it resurfaces through faults as hot springs with temperatures up to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Termas de Colina cascade down a cliff in natural terraces filled with steaming milky blue waters. The pools vary in temperature from comfortably warm soaking areas around 100 degrees Fahrenheit to almost scalding waters near the vents. The Andes continue further north. A broken spine of peaks and valleys that runs for thousands of miles. From glaciated fjords and windswept plains, the mountains rise again. Dividing arid deserts from the humid jungles of the tropics. South America changes. The air, the colours, the rhythm of life. The ice gives way to sand, and the sand to green. But those are stories for another journey. For now, our road ends at the edge of the world. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.